What up, nation? Welcome to another edition of the WiseTake NBA DFS Wise Stream. CK013 here. You can find me on Twitter at CK_013. And I'm joined once again by the GOAT, the true OG, Paulie D, who you can find on Twitter at Paulie with 8 Ds. Paulie, we got NBA playoff action. Nation's been hot. What's good?
Nation's been real hot, you know? It's nice to see the rest of the nation getting in on the action. Who had Smash City yesterday?
Our boy, Bo Larkins, WiseTake Nation member, Bo Larkins.
Yeah,
right? 5 Gs.
for a minute. That's a nice score.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah, that was a cool $5,000. Yeah. Got his ticket. WiseTake.com. I don't know.
Yeah.
It was an awesome day yesterday. Just in general, man, between NBA, even on the Saturday, I think you did the NBA Showdown and took a second place in the contest. It's just wild, man. It's been glorious. Appreciate those of you who are piling into the YouTube chat. I see a couple people like Stephen B already in there telling everybody hit the like. Much appreciated, and he's right. Please hit the like button. Goes a long way. Allows us to continue to do dirties on the YouTube and Twitch for free. So if you're here, hit the like button. Really appreciate it. We got a lot of exciting NBA. This is an awesome slate, I think. What do you think?
Yeah, I like it too. I actually like tomorrow's a little bit better, but you know, good size, good options. You know, it's a very nice slate.
Yeah, solid, man. It's 4 games was like a 4-game baseball slate is like meh, but a 4-game basketball slate is it can be pretty juicy.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. So
especially with the playoffs, like we know who's gonna play what minutes. It's mostly about narrowing down the actual game flow, you know, like what result, and then building teams to those results. And if you can nail the results right, you're in business.
In business all day, all day. I completely agree, and I'm curious to hear your thoughts. Paulie D's article, the Core Plays article, is up at WiseTake.com. I know you ended NBA on the best possible note you could have, right? You smashed City on the last regular season day, which was a complete crapshoot, and then like I said, over the weekend you did some showdown action, faded Damian Lillard, which was like just the ultimate like bob and weave, you know what I mean, like you zig I zag type situation. He was what was he in that contest? He had to have been like 90 something,
92% and 58% captain.
58% captain. So, you know, I mean, that's really what it is, man. Anybody in the finance industry knows, like, it's about buying low, selling high. And when you're playing DFS and GPPs, ownership is part of their value. It really is. So even though the price may have been, this seems reasonable, the ownership was enough for Paulie to make a pivot. And we know how much Paulie's been on Dame all year. Epic. But anyway, we'll go ahead and start getting into the games here. We got 4 games, so it shouldn't be too bad. But we got the Utah Jazz visiting the Denver Nuggets. We've got a 214.5 total, down 3 points from 217.5. Nuggets up -3. They're up to -4.5. We know this is probably the move. It's probably because Mike Conley was ruled out. Congratulations to him on the birth of his first child, or a child. I don't know if it's his first, but it's birth of a child. Paulie, I'm going to talk to you about the Utah side first. We have some clear value here with Conley being out. Who are the guys you're keying in on?
Yeah, so Jordan Clarkson, 3,800, chalk of the slate, very good play. We'll have quite a bit of him. But Donovan Mitchell's really my favorite play here. Little expensive at 8K on DraftKings, really ridiculously cheap on FanDuel. I think it was 7.3. FanDuel, everybody's priced down. It's kind of ridiculous. But yeah, love Donovan Mitchell a ton. Expect most of these games to be close. 2 kind of evenly matched teams. I do think that Denver does end up winning the series, just a little too much talent. But it should be close, and like without the point guard Conley, Mitchell's going to get that much more usage down the stretch. He'll have the ball in his hand every single play. If it's like a really close game, he'll get to the foul line a lot. So don't sweat it if he's only got 10, 12, 15 points at halftime. It's going to be all about big second half unless the game gets out of hand. So, you know, with this game and all the games, really, I do like recommend, having a handful of your teams as game stacks because, if a game goes to overtime or just is that much closer than some of the others, you're going to want multiple parts from this game on top of the fact that we have guys missing and there's value opening up. So I love those two guards. I like Royce O'Neal because he's just way mispriced for a guy who's going to get 35 minutes at 3,500. Not the highest usage guy, but he's like a 0.75, 0.8 fantasy point per minute player at 3,500, going to get 36 minutes. I'm expecting like a 25 to 28 DraftKings point kind of performance, which would be like 8x and a phenomenal play. Rudy Gobert, I'm not crazily interested in because I think the position is deep, but he's, a guy that will be worked in terms of game stacks. Joe Ingles, I like quite a bit, but not as much as Clarkson and Mitchell. I wouldn't want the three of them on a team all that much. But to get different, pair Ingles with Mitchell instead of Clarkson, pair Ingles with Clarkson instead of Mitchell, just work him in. And that's probably it. You can get a sprinkle of Emmanuel Mudiay, if you need that min price to get a nice stars and scrubs build. But I really like the balanced build on this slate, so I don't really need a ton of those kind of guys. Georges Niang, another min price guy that, he's going to need to get you like a 22, 23, something like that. I was talking to MG before the slate to outpace guys like Clarkson that are 800 more that could go for 30, 35. And there's others along the slate. So Clarkson, Mitchell, O'Neal, the three that I like the most. And then, I don't mind a little bit of Gobert and Yang and Ingles as well.
Yeah, unfortunately, I got more of the same, but unfortunately, it's just there's a couple chalk guys on this team that I'm gonna play a lot, and that's Royce O'Neal and Clarkson. And it's not unfortunate that we're playing those guys. I think they have enough talent. It's unfortunate that they're gonna be crazy popular. It's the first game, which is really the only game that we have definitive news for, with knowing that Conley is out. I do like, I read a little bit of your article and I saw your piece on Mitchell, and I do like that because initially I was thinking like, oh, Mitchell's going to be really popular, and then I looked at projected ownerships and they have him pretty far down compared to Karis LeVert and some of these other guys that are at the position. And don't get me wrong, I still like those guys more, but I went from having like literally 2% Donovan Mitchell and I upped him up to 20, specifically because I was like you said, if everybody's playing Clarkson, they may be afraid to play him with Mitchell. And I think if that's the situation, we could see him go lower owned. And we know the usage is going to be there. We know this is the playoffs. If there's anybody on this team that's going to play 40 minutes today, it's Mitchell. And then maybe Gobert. They do like him out there. But the difference is usage. And so I'm with you on that. I still like Clarkson and O'Neal more, obviously, because they're extremely cheap, especially on DraftKings. And I will have a ton of those guys. But I did up my Mitchell a little bit. And I even boosted his projection a little bit at the site, just to make sure that we don't forget about him. With that said, I agree with you on the balance build overall. There's a couple, games that pop out more than others, but one of these games, maybe it's not this one. Honestly, I don't think it's going to be this one, but there's going to be one of these games that's going to go to OT, and everybody was kind of like, nah, I don't really like a lot, and it's going to just smash burger. It just always happens on these situations, especially on small slates. But this is a candidate. I think the last two times these teams played, they went to overtime. At least looking at the minutes, I would assume so. I saw a lot of 40 minutes in there, right?
The last time they certainly
did. The last time they definitely. And I think when they played before the bubble, I think it was also an overtime game. If not, it was just a game where they played everybody master minutes. I don't know why they would, but yeah. So again, I can't trust Mitchell all the way just because I've got really bad history with him personally. As far as like whenever I play him, it just doesn't work out. I like the guy, I really do. He was always wearing Mets stuff. I like the guy. His pops played for the Mets. But he don't like me back, or at least his performances. So yeah.
Wait, is Keith Mitchell?
What's that?
His dad played baseball for the Mets?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
His dad was Keith Mitchell or Kevin Mitchell?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Power hitter? Really?
I believe so. Yeah.
I did not know that.
Oh yeah. That's why they caught him with pictures wearing Mets gear all the time and shit like that. But so hey, I don't know. Just saying, New York Knicks. Just saying, never know. One day he'll ruin me then, but I don't care. At least he'll be on my team. But real quick before we go to the next side, yes, I saw Frank mention it in the chat. FanDuel's doing upgrades on their site or updates, so maintenance, whatever. So if you're in New Jersey and Pennsylvania, and I'm in New Jersey, you can't get on their site. So normally I had been playing FanDuel and DraftKings both, but today I will not be playing FanDuel for basketball because they won't let me. So I saw some of y'all are frustrated with that, and I don't know. I don't know what the deal is, but it is what it is. All right, Paulie, what about the other side of this game? Talk to me about Denver.
Denver's a team that I don't really love a ton from. They play large rotations. Like I've got a list of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 guys that I expect to get, 15 or more minutes. And, we've got Murray, Porter Jr., and Jokic, who could all be big usage guys. But then you also got like Millsap and Jeremy Grant and Torrey Craig, who can kind of take some as well. Balanced team. If I had to pick guys, it'd be Porter and Murray. On FanDuel, Millsap's got a crazy cheap price. I think you take some stabs there on him. But on DraftKings, like I'll have a little bit of Porter, Murray, and Jokic, and I think that's it. Like I think you want to find guys with bigger roles or less mouths to feed, more so on this slate, or at least on the DraftKings side. On FanDuel, Jamal Murray's crazy cheap. Paul Millsap's crazy cheap. I'd be more willing to take shots on guys over there if you are able to get on the site and play there.
For sure, for sure. Quick shout out, quick correction. Shout out to Brian I'm sorry, it was Bowl of Borscht. Says Mitchell's old man was an exec with the Mets, never played, so maybe it wasn't. Oh, I love the term. He used the term mutts, which is what a lot of Met fans use, so probably a Met fan. But I knew it was something with the Mets. I never bothered to look because that was before our time, and I just didn't care. But shout out to you for putting in the corrections. I'm with you on the Denver side. There's not a ton that I'm interested in. I think I was kind of surprised that Jamal Murray missed all that time, and they went ahead and just threw him out there and just let him do his thing in his first game back. So that's good. At least you know he's healthy. I think it's a matchup upgrade. If he's going to see mostly Clarkson or even Moody, especially Moutier, it's a matchup upgrade not having Conley in there. So I'm with you on Murray. I think he fits the balance build. But the guys I'll have the most of are probably going to be Porter for sure. I mean, this guy is just an athletic freak. I'm always gonna, anytime he's on a slate and he's not like priced appropriately to my standards, I'm gonna have a good chunk of him. And then Jokic, man, I think you're right. He's got decent history against Utah. More importantly, his price is fairly soft. The matchup against Gobert, he wins that perimeter matchup every time. So I'm with you. I think that those are the main three. But really, Porter Jr. is the only one that I'm gonna have a substantial ownership on. Let's go on to the next game. We've got the Brooklyn Nets and the Toronto Raptors. We've got a 222 total. The Raptors are currently 10-point favorites. That's up from 9.5. We'll start with the Brooklyn side. Almost stopped Damian Lillard from getting into the playoffs, but almost doesn't count in the NBA. Paulie, what you got on Brooklyn?
Yeah, so if I was betting, I would bet on Brooklyn today. I've just been extremely impressed with them down the stretch here. Whether LeVert and Harris and Allen played or if they weren't, they kept games close. I thought they'd get smoked in. They beat Milwaukee shorthanded. And then, like you said, they almost, they pushed Dame to the brink. And, a game they really had nothing to play for. So there's some pride going on around that team. And, I think everyone, it felt like they were just throwing away the rest of the season. Kyrie, Durant didn't come back, and LeVert and Harris and these guys are like, we're still here and we're going to ball. And I think that game's going to be close. So I like this game a lot. The one nice thing about Brooklyn is they still just do not play any defense, and the other team can usually dictate the pace. Toronto will run if you allow them to. And I think that this game is a candidate to be the highest scoring game on the slate. And I think it's going to be much closer than the spread indicates. There's no home court advantage. We're not going into Toronto. Toronto's very good, but I just think that we get a close game here. So Karis LeVert obviously going to lead the charge. Without him, this team will not go very far, and he's going to have the ball in his hands, similar to like a Donovan Mitchell down the stretch. They really rely on him because they just don't have that much talent right now. Then you've got like these nice pieces like TLC, Garrett Temple, Joe Harris, Roto and Kuroic, all very cheap. All could easily exceed their price, all very easy to work into like a game stack, all going to be very low owned. And I would be mixing them into my teams at like a 15 to 25% kind of rate. And then you got Jared Allen, who is priced fairly. I think there's a little bit of upside if they do, in fact, keep the game close and he doesn't get in any foul trouble. But he's risky because he's going to have Siakam, Gasol, Ibaka, maybe Boucher, like a lot thrown at him. And he's already a foul trouble, like a guy who struggles with foul trouble. And just a deep position where you don't really need to go there. So it's like LeVert, 40%, and then TLC, Garrett Temple, Joe Harris, between 15 and 25. Kuroiks maybe like under 10, and Jared Allen under 10%.
So real quick, interesting development from the Utah Jazz. We got the starting lineups for the Jazz and the Nuggets. The Jazz are going to start Mitchell, Ingles, Royce O'Neal, Juwan Morgan, and Rudy Gobert. Juwan Morgan is min price. He played on 8-13, 8-7. He played 25 minutes in both of those games. Went for 14.25 DraftKings points and 14.75. But he is min price, and it looks like he's going to start.
Yeah.
Does that do anything for you? I mean, obviously it's good for Mitchell, good for Ingles, all these others, because you expect them to take more volume without a Clarkson starting. Any thoughts?
I mean, I would say I like Mitchell's more. I guess they want to have Clarkson on the court for action when Mitchell's off. So they're going to keep him coming off the bench. But I'd say like it probably would pull me off of Yang completely, and probably wouldn't play this guy that much either.
I completely agree. I think even if he's starting, and Jason Kidd said it best when he was at the end of his career, and they said like, "Are you okay with not starting?" He was like, "I don't give a damn as long as I'm closing," and I just don't see this kid closing. I think we will see Clarkson or some other combination that we're more used to when it comes to closing. I do think in the first few minutes that this guy's in the game, before Clarkson and those guys come in, Mitchell is going to be taking a ton of shots, and I think it's a boost to Ingles as well. As this starting lineup, he's the second guy. Gobert's not really like known as a scorer, so. And I think it also means that we'll see Royce O'Neal play a shit ton of minutes because he's probably going to be manning the 3 and the 4. He'll play the start off as the 3. He'll probably close as the 4 once they get into closing time. So I'm with you. I think that Juwan Morgan, if you have like blowout builds in mind, because then they can throw him out there and let him kind of clean up the 4th, would make sense. But I wouldn't play him a ton with the starters or the significant players. And I still like Clarkson. Like if anything, it's better for him, right? He's going to have all the second unit. He's probably going to close. And he should have like all the second unit to do dirties. As far as Brooklyn goes, I wouldn't be surprised at all if they kept this close. I mean, Karis LeVert is just, that dude's freak nasty. Love that guy. He's just awesome. I think Joe Harris, I think Jared Allen are all viable. LeVert is the only one that'll have like significant take a stand on. Yes, I want this guy. And it's a similar situation to Donovan Mitchell, right? Same reasons. The usage is just going to be insane, so it's worth a shot. Even if they have a bad game and they let you down, the usage is going to be massive. Jared Allen, I agree with you. I think he's going to be a low-owned center and definitely a viable option. The price tag I'm not crazy about, but remember, we're going to see something different, or at least we expect to see something different in the minutes of these playoff games. Teams that don't play their guys 36 minutes a game should start doing that now. It's playoff time, and they're missing all their backups. No DeAndre Jordan, Taurean Prince, all these guys. So I do expect Brooklyn to play their starters a good amount. And I don't mind working in some of the value plays like a Kuroiks, just to like work them in at low percentages, in case one of them goes nuts. But it's mainly LeVert, and some, I think Allen is definitely viable even at that price, and his ownership will be low. Next up, we've got the Philadelphia 76ers and the Boston Celtics. So this game has the lowest total at 218. We've got Boston's currently 6.5 point favorites. It's up from 5.5. We know that Simmons is done for the year. To me, Paulie, I actually thought that this could be somewhat that sneaky game that ends up going to OT. And everybody, the public is overwhelmingly on the Boston to cover the 6.5 spread, which I think is why it moved. And it's got the lowest total, so I think people are naturally going to avoid it. I think most projection systems, even including ours, are going to defer people away.
Aren't we going to talk about Toronto?
Oh, I'm sorry. Shit. Yeah, you're right. My bad. My bad. I totally jumped the gun on this one. We talked about Utah, and then I was like, we covered one team. Let's go. Yep. Good call. Yes, back to Toronto. My bad. I switched to Boston, and like my Toronto screen, I'm like, we didn't talk about these guys yet. You're right. You're right.
Again, because I think this game's close and plays at a very fast pace, like all these Toronto guys are kind of interesting to me. I really like Siakam. We know Biggs against Brooklyn's been a thing. Um, he's going to have like Garrett Temple or Joe Harris or, Kuroic's guarding him. He should be able to do whatever he wants. They do kind of run the offense through him in the high post. Kyle Lowry correlates well with him. Feels a little bit expensive, but again, I think this game plays at a very fast pace, more possessions than most of the others, and he kind of, when his shot is on, is contributing across like all stats, steals, assists, rebounds, whatnot. Van Vliet has been awesome since the restart. His price is really, really fair, so I don't think I'd want all three of them on one team. I think I'd be like Siakam with one of the two. OG Anunoby should play a ton of minutes. He's 3,500, probably going to be somewhat popular as a value play, but it's for good reason. Norm Powell, Chris Boucher could be a sneaky value play where guys think he was just playing, meaningless games when guys were out, but he might have earned himself a role on that second unit. And I think Toronto, expecting to be able to beat the Brooklyn Nets, may play these guys a little bit more in this series and keep some of the other guys healthy because OG and Ibaka were dealing with some injuries. Marc Gasol's really cheap. I'm not that into it. I just think it'll be more Siakam, but all these guys are worth a little bit of exposure. The way I've got it right now, I've got Siakam at 55%. I've got Siakam. I've got Lowry capped at 40 and Van Vliet capped at 40, and then everyone else at 20 or less.
Yep, I definitely think that Toronto's the side that can go overlooked in this game. My favorite is Van Vliet. He just seems to be the most consistent, at least during the regular season. He's really taken his game up a notch, and he seems to be the most consistent every single time. I think, like you said, his price is fair. I think the most underpriced player is definitely Siakam, because that's the guy that's got the 60 burger, like, just waiting to happen. Matchup-wise, not that Taurean Prince was going to do a ton, but there's literally no one that's going to match up with Siakam. I've been disappointed with this season on Siakam's performances. I really thought that, because whenever Kawhi sat last year, we would see him just go nuts, and we haven't seen it as much this year. Van Vliet's the one that's kind of stepped up, but we know he's capable of doing that. So when you look at his price on both sides in a playoff atmosphere where you expect him to get 36 to fucking 40 minutes if need be, unless this game does get out of hand, he does seem like the most underpriced. So I have some shares of him. I have some shares of Lowry, but Van Vliet's my favorite. I do think that Ibaka at low ownership is very interesting. He's going to be playing center. I know you look at him and Gasol, but Ibaka's the one that's shown more upside throughout the season. He seems to be more comfortable in the system, and he's going to come in the second unit. So when at least one of those guys, Van Vliet, Lowry, Siakam, are off the court, probably two of them, he'll get a chance to go out there and actually take some shots. But I'll have some Gasol just because he's cheap, mainly on DraftKings at 4-3. On FanDuel, I don't think I would. It's not necessary. There's too many high upside centers. I wouldn't go there. But on DraftKings, if you want to play him as a value play, work him in. I'm okay with it. But yeah, I'm glad you pointed him out because there's definitely a lot of Toronto side. And you know what? With ownership, that may happen too. People may do what I did and just skip Toronto and just go right on to the fucking next game, which is the Philly-Boston game. So as I was saying, I think this one could go overlooked. Projection systems, a lot of them that incorporate pace, a lot of them incorporate Vegas totals, and they may kind of dissuade some people from taking shots in this game. But from a matchup standpoint, even without Simmons, like these are two teams. This is basically a rivalry, right? Two Eastern Conference teams. These are the two of the teams that are always expected to be up top. Paulie, talk to me about Philly first.
All right. Yeah, Philly, missing Ben Simmons is going to be a big deal. Expect Al Horford to step in, revenge versus former team. They probably wishes he was still playing for because he's not been happy in Philadelphia. But also, revenge against his current team to be like, you guys had kind of demoted me, and now you need me, and you're going to see why kind of deal. Him and Embiid, I guess, aren't getting along. And, issues like that can either ruin a team and they get swept and just knocked out of the playoffs, or bring them together because, they still have that one common goal of winning. But Tobias Harris, the guy that I like the most, he's kind of in that same range as Donovan Mitchell and Karis LeVert. and some of these guys on Boston we're going to talk about in a minute, but with no Simmons, expect him to take a lot of the shots down the stretch and kind of be their go-to guy offensively, and a guy that will accrue stats all over the place: rebounds, steals, assists, blocks. Kind of can do it all. Another guy that just really works with the balance build that I like today. Embiid is in a smash spot. He's crazy cheap on FanDuel. Almost like I was like, holy shit. On DraftKings, he's 10-2. It's, he needs to have a really good game to pay that price tag off. So, I would be getting most of my Embiid exposure on FanDuel. On DraftKings, he's fine, but it's going to be more so in game stacks for me. He's not going to sneak into a ton of, normal builds for me because I'm going more balanced. And I think he's the most expensive player in the or second or third most expensive player on the slate. Alec Burks, I think, is going to come off the bench, get 18 to 22 minutes, and pay off his price, but probably not go a ton past it. I would play Clarkson over him right now. But he's a pivot off. Maybe Clarkson shoots 1 for 15, and Burks, has a very efficient day, goes for 26, 27. And that's the pivot that helps, win you the slate. Josh Richardson's fine. Shake Milton feels a little too expensive, but, there was times when this guy's had great shooting days and gone off, and, he'll be very, very low owned. Mike Scott's probably the only, real off-the-bench guy that I have much interest in. Missed most of the bubble, but did play the last two, looked fine. And, if Embiid gets into foul trouble, he'll be the next guy up. And probably we'll see around 15 to 18 minutes. He's min-priced and a guy that is capable of scoring. So I don't mind him either. But Horford and Harris are the two I'm going to have the most of, followed by probably Alec Burks.
Yeah, I like what you said in that with the game stack piece, because I do think that if you're going to play a lot of him, well, not necessarily a lot, but I think if you're going to play the Sixers, you're going to want to do it in game stacks, because I think that this obviously doesn't have the best pace. This doesn't have the highest total. So I think that for this game, people have to be extremely efficient. Maybe the game goes to OT, and you could end up having one of those. And Boston's one of those teams too, man. Everybody just assumes they're going to beat the shit out of the other team. They end up in 2 overtimes against them. So I could definitely see it. People are obviously down on the Sixers because they don't have Simmons, and I understand that. But I'm with you. I think the starters, Joel Embiid, even Tobias Harris, who's overpriced to what we're accustomed to, but maybe not overpriced in the role he's in. Al Horford, who everybody's kind of written off, but is now working his way back into that role he had previously earlier in the season. And then Jay Rich, who missed a shit ton of the season, who's now back. We know what he is capable of. And in a playoff atmosphere, I expect him to play more point guard, real true point guard, than we've seen him do normally, because he is experienced. He's been in this role in Miami a ton, where he's had to play guard. So those particular players, I like them in game stacks. I'm not saying you can't play them. I'm going to play them without game stacks too, but I do like the idea of making sure to bring some back, a couple players on the other side at least, because I think this game has that potential. Alec Burks is an exception for me. He's a value play that I think you could just play just to run him off, and just anything can happen. Like Paulie said, I don't expect him to get a ton of minutes, but we've seen him be hyper efficient, and we know he's a higher point per minute player. But I do agree with that. Shake Milton's really cheap on FanDuel. It's tempting, but I think there's too many good point guards with upside. I'd be a little hesitant to pull the trigger on him too much.
There's a chance that they swap Burks and Shake Milton and say, you know what, Burks is more of a scorer. We're lacking that. We're going to go more with him. And then his ceiling could get opened up. But until something like that happens, he's just not getting enough minutes to really smash.
Yeah, agreed. What about the Boston side?
So I like a lot of the Boston side, as a game stack, but also as individual pieces on this slate. They're a very well coached team. I don't think there's much likelihood that they get blown out, and they're all priced, decent. Gordon Hayward's probably my favorite. The guy was awesome in the bubble. I think he missed 1 free throw in the fourth quarter of the entire bubble, and had the ball in his hands a lot down the stretch of close games. Contributes across all stats, and like their coach really did something nice. Not, but he keeps out of Kemba, Tatum, Hayward, and Brown. He keeps two of them on the court at all times, and Hayward kind of exits early in the first quarter and then comes back, and he's like in the CJ McCollum, get all the usage in the beginning of the second quarter kind of role, and then he goes back to the bench, and Tatum comes back. So he kind of gets these like runs where he's doing everything, and it shows in his production. Then you got Tatum, who's pricey, but not like at a stud level price where you can still work him into balance builds, and probably has the highest ceiling of any of these Celtics. Kemba, the training wheels should be off. He should be able to play 35 to 40 minutes if need be. And, we know he's got 60-point upside. It hasn't been as evident with the Celtics, but I bet there'll be one game in this playoffs where he just goes absolutely ham and you needed him and maybe more. We don't know exactly what Kemba's upside really is. How much has the injury affected him? Is he all the way back? Is his shot in rhythm? But he generally could have the highest ceiling on this team if everything was normal. So I think he's an interesting guy to just get shares of throughout the playoffs because he's always going to be low owned. Daniel Tice, I think, is a nice piece for like low ownership and just like, he'd be a cash game play for sure. Like, I think he'll get you 5X. And he's got upside to even 7 at no ownership. And, there's potential that these games all are tightly played, lower scores. And that's when those kind of guys become really important as well. So he's a guy to mix in. I'm going with Hayward, Tatum, and Hayward and Tatum at up to 40%. And then the rest of the team at 25%. Jaylen Brown, Daniel Tice, Marcus Smart, Kemba Walker.
Yeah, if you don't live in New Jersey or Pennsylvania and you are able to play FanDuel today, the Boston team is really underpriced for a playoff situation where you expect these guys to play more minutes than they've probably played all year. Jaylen Brown is 6'2", Hayward is 6'1", Kemba 6K. Jason Tatum's the only one who's, he's 8'3". He's the only one. So I definitely think on FanDuel it's even easier to want to play these guys. I like what you said about Hayward. He has looked really good. I think the Kemba, Jaylen Brown situation is interesting. I guess you can consider Marcus Smart in that mix, though obviously you're going to have him way lower on the totem pole. But with Ben Simmons out, that's a big hit to their wing defense when Simmons is playing point guard. I know he's been playing a lot of forward, but when he is playing point guard, that's kind of a hit. Between Shake Milton and Alec Burks, like Richardson's only one person, so he's gonna guard one person, whether it be Jaylen Brown or Kemba, and he's their good solid wing defender. So one of those guys, whoever Jay Rich decides he needs to shut down, one of those guys, the other one's probably gonna go nuts. He's probably gonna score a ton of points. So I like that situation. Like I said, on FanDuel, it's a lot easier to buy into it. Jaylen Brown's only 6'2". Kemba Walker is 6K. On DraftKings, a little bit more of a stretch, but what that's going to do is lower everybody's ownership. You're going to see Hayward come in really low owned despite the fact that he's played well. Jaylen Brown's going to come in low owned despite the fact that we know he's capable of going for those 40-plus fantasy points. Tatum's the only one that I think will have some ownership, but even him, I don't think his ownership will be that crazy. I just don't think people are going to be that into this game except maybe Embiid because of the pricing specifically. But outside of that, I kind of think it's wide open. And in tournaments, it's an interesting game. Does that mean I'm going to go 50, 60% game stacks at this? Fuck no, I don't need to. I can just simply play at the 20, 30% or whatever it is and know that and feel like I'm overweight on the field anyway. So just to be clear. With that said, let's get into what I think most people, or at least I believe to be the game of the night, the one I'm the most excited to watch. The Dallas Mavericks and the Los Angeles Clippers. We have a 229 total down from 230. The Clippers opened up -6. They're up to -6.5. We'll start with the Dallas side. What do you like here?
Luka's awesome. He's great, but he doesn't fit what I'm really trying to do. I'll have like 20% of him in case because he could have by far the highest score on the day if Dallas does hang in this one and pull out the win or take him to the brink. It's on the strength of him in his first playoff game. Doing dirts, but a little too pricey to really work in a ton. You can definitely go get them. There's plenty of these min-price guys you could take stabs on, but I truly like the balanced build, and he kind of makes it hard to fit in with that. So I'm going to be underweight on him, although I agree this game is the most likely to have the highest score, to be the most fantasy producing. But I'm going to have a ton of Kristaps. Bigs versus the Clippers has been a thing all season. Um, he shouldn't have any restrictions, as Dallas would love to win this game and this series. And, he's really been unicorn-like in games that he's gotten the minutes, where blocks, steals, three-pointers, rebounds, double-doubles, just accumulates a ton of points. And at 8-3 has a ton of upside. I mean, he was 9-4 on the last slate that he was on, I believe. Seth Curry seems too cheap, going to have a pretty solid role. Want to go back to him as, one of these value plays, kind of like Alec Burks. Tim Hardaway Jr. is a little underpriced if he gets hot shooting. And that's really it. Those four guys are the only ones that I really have much interest in right now. Don't think Boban gets enough time. Don't think Maxi's, has enough ceiling. It's really like Kristaps and Seth Curry. Kristaps I'll probably have 50% or more of. Seth Curry in the 30s, Tim Hardaway in the 20s, and Luka in the 20s.
Yep, no, I think that this game looks like the best one, and normally the late night games go lower owned, and maybe it'll go lower owned than it should, but this is going to be, I think, the game that most people have their eyes on, and for good reason. I'll have a good amount of Luka, but I do like Porzingis, and I think that in terms of ownership, I expect Luka to be somewhere around like 50%, and I'll probably be a little underweight on that, 35 to 40. Porzingis, I expect to come in maybe around 20, and I'll be a little overweight on him, somewhere around 30, 35. This is a matchup where the Clippers have a lot of good wing defenders, assuming Patrick Beverley is back. He's obviously known for his defense. Kawhi and Paul George are both very good defenders. So I'm concerned, and if you look at the history, it kind of shows. Luka doesn't always have very big upside. He's had some of his lowest scoring games in full minutes against this team. Porzingis is the one that represents a big problem for him. Between Zubac, between Montrezl Harrell, who's expected to be back today, neither of them are very good defenders at all, which is why the Clippers have sucked against bigs all year. So I'm with you. Porzingis is the one that I primarily like, but I will have shares of Luka. And for me, and Seth Curry's the only third guy. That's the only dude that I'll have. Like Paulie said, value play. Expect him to play a lot of minutes. They expect him to need him to kind of shoot. I always say that when you're playing a good defensive team, if it's not Porzingis doing dirties, then it's going to be somebody who's taking jump shots, because that's the way that you stop good defense, is being able to shoot in their face. That's there's no defense for that. So I think that Curry will play some minutes, and a lot of minutes, and I think he's an interesting value play. But it's mainly Porzingis and then Luka. What about the Clipper side? A lot of question marks here still.
Yeah, so Montrez is going to return. We don't know how many minutes they're going to play him, but I would lean towards more than less. They're just going to need him. Zinger could get one of these guys in foul trouble, or just they getting dominated on the boards. And they really, Zubac is not athletic enough to be able to handle that. I think they're just going to need Montrez, although his price is just too high on DraftKings to really get any significant ownership on. With the Clippers, it's Paul George is the guy I'll have the most of at 40%. That 8K price range. Really is easy to get like 4 or 5 guys in that range with a couple of 4 to 5 or 6K guys and have a nice balanced lineup. Kawhi, if I end up getting one stud in a lineup, he'll probably be the one I have the most of. Just expect him to do the most. Dallas was in all these shootouts. They play hyper fast, no defense. After that, I think you can get shares of Reggie Jackson, Marcus Morris, J. Michael Green, Zubac, and Lou Williams. But I won't have more than 15% of any of them, with the exception of maybe Zubac at his price at 4,100. I think 6X is the mean, what he would average if you played this game 10 times. And, 2 or 3 of those times he's going to 7 or 8X. 2 or 3 of those times he's going to 4 or 5X. But I think 6X is what you would project for him, and that's pretty solid on this slate. So I'll probably have a bit more of him than the rest of those guys. But it's really Paul George, and at 40 to 50, Kawhi at 25 to 35, and Zubac's around that same like 20 to 30, and then everyone else below 15.
I have the same exposures for Kawhi, Paul George, and Zubac. I like all three of them. I like George the most, obviously, because his price and usage combined. I do like Kawhi, but somewhere around the 20 to 30. And I'm with you. Zubac I have about 30% of. I think he's one of the better value plays on DraftKings today at 4-1. And he just played this team and went for 44 in 25 minutes. So I know Harrell is back, but I don't necessarily know that Harrell will help them a ton against Porzingis. Not a perimeter thing. Porzingis is 7-1, 7-2. Harrell is 6'9", 6'10", something like that. So it's like a pretty big difference. But I'm not sure how much they're willing to throw Harrell out there. He hasn't played. I don't know how long. And I mean, how much can they possibly play the guy? I would think 20, 22 minutes is like a max. We'll see. I guess unless they're desperate. But I have the same exposure for those three. The one player that I'm different on is Lou Williams. I'm a little higher on him just because this is a position that Dallas has struggled against all season. Is those wing scoring guys. Lou Williams is a player that you're relying on efficiency, so I wouldn't play him in cash by any means. But in tournaments, I kind of like the idea of going overweight. I could see I could see this game, being real popular, and maybe it doesn't go the way people thought, and it's because guys like Lou Will are just extremely efficient and just kind of broke the game away a little bit, which is a possibility. Other than that, I agree with you completely on all the other players. Patrick Beverley is another one. He missed a lot of time. He's 3,400. You would think they're going to want him on the court a lot against Luka, but there's also, when you're playing a guy for his defense, you also have to worry about foul trouble. He's missed a lot of time already, so there's a lot of question marks. But those four players, to me, and my favorite two here are Lou Williams and Paul George, with Zubac being the value play. Like, he's up there just because he's cheap. That's just bottom line. Not that it's not a good matchup, it is, but I'm with you on that. We'll get into the questions, and then we'll get up out of here and finalize our own teams. Mr. OG DFS, has anyone spoken with FanDuel? I have not. I mean, they have something on their site. I don't know if it's up now. Maybe check now. Maybe it's up there. I would imagine that the problem is if you're in New Jersey and PA, it was down for you, but it wasn't down for everybody else. So there's a good chance the contests are taken by now anyway. What else do we have here? My brother asked Alec Burks, Temple, or PJ Dozier. Of those three, I prefer Burks. Paulie?
Burks. Temple not far behind. I won't have any PJ Dozier.
Yeah, I won't have any PJ Dozier either. I don't see any other questions really. I mean, I'd have to scroll way up. I did see one question. I don't know if she's still in here, but Rebecca Ramey asked, somewhat newer to DFS, can someone explain what a cash game is and if it is better than tournaments? Paul, do you want to take this one?
Sure. Cash games are any games that are considered double ups, 50-50. Where you only have to beat 50% of the player pool, and you're playing for just, it doesn't matter if you come in first or, 50th out of 100 people, you're going to get double your money or, pretty close to. They may take a little big. Tournaments are the ones that, first place pays 10, 15% of the prize pool and has all the big prizes at the top. It really comes down to what your goals are. If you're trying to be an everyday grinder, or if you have, if you're looking for the big score, you decide what kind of what your goals are, what kind of player you're going to be.
Holla. Christopher Rivas says, is Clarkson a no-go now that he is not starting?
Oh, no. He's a very go. You're going to play a lot of Clarkson. Don't worry about whether he starts. It's whether he finishes. That
absolutely. And at Clarkson's price, even if Conley was in, I would still like him. He's just too cheap, at least on DraftKings, where he's 39, 38, whatever he is. But yes, I agree with you completely. The second unit is wide open for him, and I would be surprised if he didn't close in this game. Manny Garcia, any thoughts on Juwan Morgan?
I have zero interest.
Yeah, I'm just not doing it. Kellen Rice, I got here late, so you might have talked about him already, but thoughts on Royce O'Neal? DraftKings seems like a steal with Conley out.
Love Royce O'Neal. Will probably be my third highest exposed player.
Yep, same thing with me. I'll have a lot of them. Shout out to Diego. Thanks for the breakdown, boys. Let's do dirties. Good luck today. Michael Yarborough's in there trying to help out answer questions. Appreciate you. Appreciate all you guys who hung out with us. Pretty good about it. Please hit the like button on your way out. Really goes a long way. Subscribe to the channel. We'll be back for baseball at 6 p.m., which we've been hot in both sports, so I don't even know what to tell you. Catch them both, play them both, do dirties. If you missed out on FanDuel or NBA, just play that volume in MLB. That's what it's been. We've just been doing a phenomenal job. Mark Yarborough, is Embiid a lock on FanDuel?
I'd say pretty damn close at that
Very cheap.
price.
Daniel Diaz-Royce, the best value play on the slate. One of, I'd say.
Yeah, I would say Clarkson's probably better. He just has much higher ceiling, but he's top
Agreed.
three.
Manny Garcia, Lemonade all day from the KBO days. Appreciate you guys. We're going to get out of here and finalize our teams. For myself, for Paulie, the entire WiseTake Nation, as always, good luck.